Hi everybody, my name is Abraham and I'm your big brother in recovery, welcoming you back to our channel for another educational video on recovery. For all you guys who have not subscribed yet, please hit the like and the subscribe button and share this information with your friends, because what we're going to do is again attempt to empower, enlighten, and equip you through education, because as those of you know who follow us on the channel, I am a person in long-term recovery, and I have been since November 17th, 1980. So that makes it 38 years thus far, going on 39 this year when November does come, one day at a time, right? But the reason why I decided to do this channel, you can look at our first video called About Us, was basically to teach people in recovery how to achieve sustainable sobriety. So that's what we're going to attempt to do again today. Now, I need to ask you to do me two favors. One, you know, we believe that the program of recovery is located in the book, not necessarily in the person. So I want you to go get your 12 and 12, and also I need you to go and get your big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. So while you are going to get that, and or listening to this video first and replaying it again after we go through it, and you can study along with me. If many of you know me, you know that I do only one thing, and that one thing is teach people in recovery how to achieve sustainable sobriety. You know, there's an old saying, and here's an Abrahamism: if you want to be a success, never listen to a failure. And I'm not saying that to be braggadocious, but I've never experienced a relapse in the 38 years that I've been in recovery. So therefore, I have not only recovered, but I have been empowered to help others. So that's just a synopsis on why I'm doing this channel. So without further ado, let's go into our 12 and 12. I want to talk about something that I think is going to be informational to you right now. And that is, you know, I deal with people on a daily basis, helping them along their road to recovery. And I'm noticing something both in and out of the rooms. I'm noticing people with substantial time, multiple years, as well as newcomers that are coming in, relapse. And I'm not God, and I'm not here to be derogatory or victimize somebody, because you wouldn't wish that on your worst enemy, because we know that addiction is 100% treatable. I want to say that again. Addiction is 100% treatable, but there is no chemical solution for your spiritual problem. I want to talk about something that I want to reveal to you that I think is going to help you along your road to recovery. And that is something that the 12 and 12 talks about, called two-stepping. Two-stepping. I know you've heard of the three-steppers. That's the people who continue to do the first three steps after 20 years. They're still in meetings talking about the first three steps. And I'm not here to victimize nobody. And then I know you've heard of 13-stepping. That's when a male feels he can inject the female with the program of recovery, or there's some women that I've been told that attempt to reverse the psychology on getting a newcomer, a male newcomer, into a sexually compromising situation. But I'm not here to talk about the third step, nor am I here to talk about the 13th, but I am here to talk about two-stepping. And I'm going to tell you what two-stepping basically is, because I want you to have a litmus test and not fall into the deceptive practice of two-stepping. There are a lot of people, and I call them, not being funny, I call them entertainers, and I call people like myself educators. There are a lot of entertainers in the 12-step program, in the rooms, in the fellowship, that have no sponsorship. And if they do have a sponsor, it is in name recognition only, because what they've elected to do is do step one, admit that they're powerless and their lives have become unmanageable. And step 12, they want to carry a message to people that are still suffering both in and out of the rooms. But they've omitted step 2 through 11. So a two-stepper is a person who only does step 1 and step 12. They admit they're powerless and unmanageable, and they give leads and they do all kind of service work. They may even sponsor some people. And, you know, I'm not here to put anybody down, but that's not the fullness of what the 12-step program offers. You know, I mean, there's a lot of other things involved in the 12 steps that will make you happy and usefully whole, and you can experience the 12 promises that the book talks about. But I'd like to draw your attention to a statistic. I read it the other day. It says that 8 out of 10 people, newcomers, that leave a residential treatment facility usually relapse within 6 months upon leaving. I found that statistic to be startling because if you replay our video about how did Bill W. recover, you'll see I talked about on Roman numeral page 20, XX, in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. It talked about the numbers. It talked about 50% of the people who came to AA and really tried got sober at once and remained that way. It talked about 25% of the people suffered some relapses, but they eventually got themselves together. And among the remainder of the people, those people who weren't working on anything, their lives improved. You know, but what I like to draw your attention to, and let's let the book do all the talking for us, because opinions are like garbage cans. Everybody has one. So, would you kindly go with me to page 112? Page 112 in your 12 and 12, okay? And I want to start at the last paragraph on page 112. Of course, all AAs, even the best, fall short of such achievement as a consistent thing without necessarily taking that first drink. We often get quite off the beam. Our troubles sometimes begin with indifference. You remember, always look for similarities, not differences. We are sober and happy in our AA work. Things go well at home and office. We naturally congregate ourselves on what later proves to be a far too easy and superficial point of view. We temporarily cease to grow. That's a problem, because we feel satisfied that there is no need for all of AA's 12 steps. For us, we're doing fine on a few of them. Maybe we are doing fine on only 2 of them. The first step in that part of the 12 step where we carry the message. In AA slang, that blissful state is known as two-stepping, and it can go on for years. You recall I read a story about a man who got clean, but he never got sober, and he stayed clean for 25 years. And in the story, they used the slang, he was bone dry. And we did the video on that. Take a look at it. It's called Are You Bone Dry? He got clean, but he never got sober. And I'll explain that. You can get clean and never get sober, but you can't get sober without first getting clean. Clean merely means abstinence, right? But how many of you know that drugs are not our problem? Drinking is not our problem, but thinking about drinking is the problem. So sobriety, serene, serenity simply means soundness of mind. Going from insane, unsound mind to soundness of mind. And the only way to get to soundness of mind while in pursuit of the abstinence is to go through the 12-step process, because that process starts to transform your mind. Our mind, when we come into recovery, is double-minded. We have a conscious, and beneath that, the prefix sub means underneath, subconscious, under the conscious. Our conscious wants to do what's right. It wants to recover. But what happens is our subconscious wants to do what it's familiar with. So therefore, if your conscious is your guide and your conscious is programmed with untruth, you're going to revert back to relapse as opposed to continuing on the pathway of recovery. So when you're double-minded, you want to do two things at the same time. That's why literature says there's no hope for a person unless they undergo a complete or an entire psychic or mind change. That's why it's noteworthy for you to notice the 12-step principles help you. Number one, the first 3 steps help you get back connected to the source, because you and I have been relying on the resource, or it helps us get back with the creator, or merely because we have abused the created. Step 4, 5, and 6 help us get right with us. Steps 7, 8, 9 help us get right with the wrongs we've done to others, because we can't live in this world by ourselves. And last but not least, step 10, 11, and 12 help us maintain what we just obtained from 1 through 9, which is, the big book talks about a spiritual regime or spiritual fitness. In other words, it's the golden rule. I'm good with God, I'm good with myself, and I'm doing unto others as I would have others do unto me. So now my moral code is live and let live. In other words, when I go through the 12-step process, I discover, once I recover, my purpose. And my purpose is solely to be a maximum service to God and to help others to achieve sustainable sobriety. Now let's keep reading what it's going to say in the next paragraph on page 113. The best intention of us can fall for the 2-step illusion. Sooner or later, the pink cloud stage wears off and things go disappointingly dull. We begin to think that AA doesn't pay off after all. We become puzzled and discouraged, simply because we haven't done what those more than 100 men and women did. If you recall, if you look at our forward to the first edition, I'll let you get there, Roman numeral XIII, it clearly states in the first paragraph, we of Alcoholics Anonymous are more than 100 men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and what? Body. To show other alcoholics precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book. For them, we hope these pages will prove so convincing that no further authentication will be necessary. If you have your big book dictionary, you can look the word authentication up and you'll see it. One of the definitions is no other proof. And it goes on to say, we think this account of our experience will help everyone to better understand the alcoholic. Many do not comprehend that the alcoholic is a very sick person. And besides, we are sure that our way of living has its advantages for all. So in the beginning of the book, it tells you that they have done something that have gotten them out of the problem or the predicament that they were in at one time. And I was in that situation, and maybe you currently are. But I'm here to tell you something. If you're not working on recovery, you may not even be working on relapse, but possibly resuming, because you must go through the process. I want to share something with you real quickly on page 50. I could start on page 59 for the sake of time, because I really want you to grasp what I'm saying about this. And then I'm going to ask you a question on the conclusion of this. On page 59, I want you to notice, starting on the bottom of page 58, remember, we deal with alcohol, cunning, baffling, and powerful. Without help, it's too much for us. But there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. This is what I want you to notice. Half measures avail us nothing. That means 2 steps avail us nothing. We stood at the turning point. What is the turning point? The turning point is simply, step 1 told us our problem. We were powerless and unmanageable. Step 2 told us our solution. We need power. Read the second paragraph on page 45 and it'll tell you what I'm saying. The third step tells us now you're at the turning point. Do you want the power or you want to remain powerless because there's only one that has all power? May you find him now, simply because it takes power to live without using. As a matter of fact, I shared with you, and it may upset some people, but I have recovered and have been empowered by the one with all power to help others to achieve sustainable sobriety. Why would you come into a way of life to learn how to recover and then say you never do recover? The message of recovery is simple. It is a message of hope. And in that message of hope, the whole message is simply this: we do recover. Anybody that has a message that's contradicting, we do recover, hasn't recovered. So therefore, they don't even imagine it to be possible because they don't know, number one, what they're recovering. In order to recover something, it has to have had tremendous value to you that, number one, you no longer know where it is, and number two, it's so valuable to you that you want it back. You want to recover it. Well, guess what? The literature tells us what it is. It is not anything selfish, but it is everything talking about, I want my relationship back with my higher power. Simple. No relationship, no recovery. Why? A, you were addict and alcoholic and couldn't manage your own life. That sounds like step one. B, probably no human power, including your sponsor and yourself, could relieve your alcohol or your addiction. But C, God could and would if he was sought. Let's read it backwards. He can't and he ain't because he gave you free will, and your free will, he can't go against your free will simply because you have to make a decision to allow the one with all power to help you. Now I want you to notice on page 59, here are the steps, plural, we took, meaning those more than 100 men and women, which is suggested as a program of recovery. And it goes through 12, not just 2. So don't believe the myth, meeting makers stay clean. No, meeting makers use, because guess what? They don't understand the difference between a meeting and a group. A meeting is the gathering of 2 people. That could possibly be you and I. But I don't think don't just rely solely on these videos to keep you clean and sober. Get a sponsor, get a home group, get a higher power your understanding, and by all means do some service work. All these together will help you develop a spiritual fitness or regimen. Notice what it says in step 12. Having had a spiritual awakening, because we already had the experience, the awakening comes through an educational process. As a result of these steps, plural, which are 12, not 2, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles, because behind every step is a principle. That's why you just can't stay on step 1 and step 12 in all of our affairs. Many of us exclaim, what an order to go through this process. I can't go through with it. Do not be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We're not saints. The point is that we are willing, there you go, to grow along spiritual lines. The principles we have set down are guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. And obviously it gets down to the summary of the big book. And last but not least, here are the ABCs of recovery. You must accept A, B, and C. If you don't, the original big book says pretty much throw it in the trash, because until you can accept these 3 things, we can't go any further. Last but not least, I want you to also notice that our book says on page 82, and I want you to look at the second paragraph on page 82. This might freak some of you out. If we have so much complication, there is plenty we should do at home. Sometimes we hear an alcoholic say that the one thing he needs to do is keep sober. I hear it all the time. I've said it in the past myself. Certainly he must keep sober, for there will be no home if he doesn't. But he is yet a long way from making good to the wife or parents whom for years he has so shockingly treated because he was a sick man. Passing all understanding is the patience mothers and wives have had with alcoholics. Had this not been so, many of us would have no homes today, would perhaps be dead. And if you look down at the next paragraph, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines down, it clearly says, we feel a man is unthinking when he says that sobriety is enough. You know, a lot of people think sobriety is the goal, but sobriety is not the end of all. You have soundness of mind, which is sobriety, but what are you using the soundness of mind to do? And I'll tell you, simply to do thy will and not your will any longer, because guess what? God's will is sufficient opposed to your will. Because prior to you and I coming in recovery, we were concerned about self-will. Now it's God's will. And that's the difference between a person who has recovered and a person recovering. A recovering person still has self-will. A recovered person no longer wants to fulfill self-will, but is intrigued with fulfilling God's will. But we're not perfect. That's why there are erasers on pencils. Last, what I'd like to show you is there is a great story and a great chapter you need to read, and it's called He Sold Himself Short. And it talks about a sponsor-sponsee relationship that so many of you have to question yourself, why don't you have a sponsor? And if you do have a sponsor, why isn't things going right with your sponsor? Again, check out our video on sponsorship. So in conclusion, I just wanted to reveal the deceptive practice that's going around both in the rooms and out of the rooms, because you can go to some meetings and it's so disruptive, and guess who's being disruptive? The guy that's got 15 years. He's side talking, he's doing all these different things, and what kind of image is that for the newcomer coming in? So let's try to govern ourselves, because self-government is the highest form of government. And let's not settle for half measures, but let's take our time and let's go through the steps. As a matter of fact, I'll say this before I close. In the old days, the old timers, their sponsors only had one job, and I want you to hear me clearly, and that was take the newcomer through the 12 steps as quickly as humanly possible. Notice I said quickly. Why? Simply because they understood that a person will use again if they don't change their way of thinking. Second of all, they also knew that they had to also train other people to be able to do the service work to go on the 12-step calls to help the persons that were suffering. So now, here's the question I've been waiting to lead up to. And it's no question to feel embarrassed about. Are you a 2-stepper or are you a 12-stepper? Only you know. The reason why I did this video is to get you to get off of your laurels and stop resting on them, feeling that you are working on something when all you're doing is step 1 and step 12. Stay away from that. Go through the process. Half measures avail us nothing. Stay away from the 3-steppers, and by all means, don't be a 13-stepper. Look, this is your big brother in recovery, Abraham speaking. Again, let's go ahead on and smash this video and send it out to 100 people. Let's get 100 views, 100 likes on this video, because guess what? We are responsible for each other. And you know what? I want for my brothers and sisters what I want for myself. And what do I want for them? I want them to know the truth, simply because truth is never invented. Truth is always discovered. And when you discover the truth will make you free. Look, I'll talk to you soon. I hope you really got a lot out of this video. Leave me some comments at the bottom. And guess what? Get ready to go on the greatest ride of your life, because we do recover. Talk to you soon. Bye.